Tram. Earlier this summer, our North Park family endured the loss of Brendan Tram, who passed away suddenly on June 28th. Brendan was a polite, kind young man with many friends and a passion for sports. In a very touching tribute to Brendan, his friends and family arranged to have his funeral procession drive by the school since COVID-19 prevented the opportunity for a proper goodbye. Hundreds of students and staff lined the streets in front of North Park as the procession drove by, and members of his football and basketball teams wore their jerseys to honor him. Brendan will be forever missed by his parents, his younger sister, many of the family members, his friends, and the entire North Park community. There will be a sports scholarship created in Brendan's name to hand out annually to a student who demonstrates kindness and all-around sportsmanship. Respectfully submitted, Susan Nort, Principal, North Park Collegiate.
Thank you very much for reading that, Trustee Sloat, and I believe you are doing the next one as well.
Memorial statement for Gregory Canavet. It is with great sadness that the Facility Services Department and Grand Erie community learned of the death of Gregory Canavet. Greg had been with the board for 20 years as a facilities maintenance mechanic. Although he worked at most schools throughout the board, he was most recently assigned to the Waterford family of schools in maintenance. Greg passed away on August 5th, 2020 at the age of 62. Greg was a family man. He was a devoted husband of Roxanne for 36 years, a loving father to Lisa and Jeff, a proud grandfather to 6 grandchildren, and adoring great-grandfather to 7 great-grandchildren. Colleagues will remember Greg for his great sense of humor and his ability to make others laugh with his funny sayings and his ability to do imitation and voices. Greg was always happy and was full of interesting facts and knowledge. Colleagues agreed he was a great man and a great friend. Greg will be dearly missed by all who he knew here at Grand Erie. We respectfully submitted Lena Latre, Division Manager of Operations, Health and Safety.
Thank you very much, Trustee Sloat. Okay, I'd like to proceed on the agenda. I'd like to make one slight change because I do know we have a great deal of interest in this one item. It's the item E1F, the JK to grade 3 maths. I would like to move that up to the very start of new business, okay? So we're looking at moving that one item up to the start of E1. So if people are okay with that, could I get a motion to move? Thank you. Trustee Richardson moves it. Trustee Spears seconds it. Anybody opposed to passing this? Carries. Thank you very much. In-camera report. Lisa, could you please read what we have?
The following recommendations were made during in-camera. Moved by Trustee Sloat, seconded by Trustee Richardson, that the Grand Erie District School Board receive the recommendations to add to the replacement and casual principal and vice principal list effective September 1st, 2020.
Thank you very much. I'll call the question. Anybody opposed to that? Not seeing any. Any others, Lisa?
Moved by Trustee Culver, seconded by Trustee Sloat, that the Grand Erie District School Board approve C1C.
Call the question. Anybody opposed to approving that motion? That carries. Go ahead.
Moved by Trustee Van Every Albert, seconded by Trustee Gibson, that the Grand Erie District School Board approve the Director's operational goals for 2020-21.
Thank you, Lisa. Can I get straw? I guess we just have to say, is anybody opposed? Anybody opposed to approving this? Not seeing any. Do we have any further ones, Lisa?
That's it tonight.
Thank you very much. Okay, and a reminder, if you are not speaking, please, if I could ask trustees to be on mute so we try and minimize the background noise, and thank you. Okay, we're going to go on to B1, which is the approval of minutes. So the first one is the June 22nd regular board meeting. Can I please get a motion to pass that? Trustee Doyle, seconded by Trustee, who we got there? Dixon. Thank you, Trustee Dixon. And anybody opposed to approving this? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the special board meeting on the 24th. Trustee Dixon and then Trustee Gibson seconds. Could I get an indication? Anybody opposed?
No. Greg, I'd like to speak to those, please.
Certainly. Go right ahead, Trustee Sloat.
Thank you. Sorry. Just item A1E, that the Grand Erie District School Board approve item A1A. I believe that should be that the Grand Erie District School Board appoints Joanna Roberto as Director of Education and Secretary to the Board, effective August 1st, 2020. So we actually have a public motion that we hired an amazing new director.
Thank you, Trustee Sloat. Thank you. I think
amended?
Yes, as amended. And I think we've called the question. I was a little quick in getting that through, so we have already approved that, I believe. But thank you, Trustee Sloat. Okay, July 9th, special board meeting. We had lots of special board meetings. Can I get a mover, please? Trustee Sloat and a seconder. Trustee Spears. Anybody opposed to this? Are there any questions? Seeing neither, we can say that has been approved. Now, the July 28th special board meeting. A mover and a seconder, please. Trustee Doyle and Trustee Richardson. And is there any questions on this one? Seeing none, anybody opposed to approving this? That also carries. Then we have the August 17th special board meeting. A motion, please. Trustee Culver and seconded by Trustee Dixon. Any questions? Anybody opposed? That also carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we are off now to Superintendent DeVos with the French Immersion Ad Hoc Committee report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. As you will recall, on June 22nd, you approved the establishment of a French Immersion Ad Hoc Committee. Tonight, Senior Administration is recommending that we defer this establishment of this committee due to many challenges as outlined in the paragraph previous to that. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions for the superintendent? And I think in light of the current situation, I understand why you're recommending this. Trustee Sloat, please go ahead.
I just motion to reopen this because it was passed to bring this back for debate, please, since it was done this calendar year and had a date in it.
Okay, so if you could.
The original motion was to be presented to the board November 9th, 2020. So I think we need a motion with 2/3 majority to reopen this item, please. I'll make that.
So first, Trustee Worden, would you like to second that, please?
I'll second it. It's either that or the administration brings a request that we defer it.
Well, I think if we get 2/3 on opening it, I think we could then do that. So I would ask if there's anybody opposed to reopening this. So that seems to be unanimous. Now, next step is to go to the report itself, which is suggesting we defer this report. Trustee Sloat, did you wish to move that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Trustee Worden. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none, that is approved, and we'll obviously be putting the French immersion report off for some time. Thank you, Superintendent DeVos. Superintendent Baker, please.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. The Friday the 13th report is in front of trustees tonight. Finally, there's only one Friday the 13th in the 2020-21 school year. That's on November the 13th. That would be considered a cold weather event, and traditionally there's been a recommendation on cold weather events where the crowds are a little bit smaller, that Lakewood School would remain open and all the transportation would be running. In the 2021 school year, November 13th was also designated as a PA day, and consequently, when that happens, there is no recommended action required because the students would not be at school. So we were sort of left with one or the other because the calendars were not approved when this report came before the trustees on June the 8th. So we had to wait until they were to see what we would have to do. On August the 19th, the calendars were approved by the ministry, which means that November the 13th will be designated as a PA day. Therefore, there will be no recommended action since the students will not be at school that day. And that recommendation is listed in item 3.1. And I would answer any questions if trustees had some.
Thank you, Superintendent Baker. Questions for the superintendent? Not seeing any. Could I get a mover, please? Trustee Gibson, followed by Trustee Spears. Any other questions? Anybody opposed to this motion? Thank you, Superintendent Baker. That carries. Next, Director Roberto, please return to in-person board meeting plan.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. At our last board meeting, we presented a report to return to in-person at our board meeting for September the 14th. I'm bringing back the report. This is an information item in terms of reporting back to you some of the pieces that we were able to gather with respect to additional information, I should say. So one of the options is for us to return back to our existing board meeting as an entire team with the proper PPE as per the recommendations that Public Health Unit has provided us. The second option would be that we could go into the board meeting boardroom, but we would not have all both the Board of Trustees and superintendents in that space, as there would only be 14 members without the PPE requirements that the PHU unit has suggested. And the third would be to move over to the Grand River Hall at Joseph Brandt. And again, that would provide us with some more physical distancing in terms of space. Now, given those pieces, if you notice on page 2 of the report, one of the components that we will need to consider moving back in is proper audio. Currently, we have a rough estimate of what that audio would look like in order for us to be able to come back into the room, as well as provide an opportunity and space for those who are unable to join through Microsoft Teams with some proper audio. So there is a cost, an approximate cost at this point to that one. Our recommendation as a senior team would be option 1, to return to the board meeting, boardroom with proper PPE equipment.
Thank you, Director Roberto. I'm going to throw this open now for questions or comments from trustees. Go ahead, Trustee Worden, please.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. What is the overriding benefit to stay in the boardroom and use option 1 over going to the Grand River Hall? Like, there's a balancing, and for the recommendation, why recommend the boardroom over Grand River Hall?
I'll put that to the director.
Thank you. Basically, one of our pieces was that if we went into the Grand River room, first of all, it's not our boardroom, we would be able to observe that 2-meter distancing. But the setup there is going to look quite different for us. The other piece for us may be that that space may be required for other components as we move into the reopening of our schools. And so that was one of the pieces that we felt in order to preserve that and to go back into our actual meeting space, that it would be best for us to be back in there. And that was the decision that we made. So we were looking at it from a space point as well, just in case we require it.
Trustee Worden, a supplementary question? Trustee Worden, any follow-up? Nope, not seeing any further questions from trustees. Go ahead, Trustee Spears.
So it was more of a comment just to make sure that all trustees that can't be there can definitely log in with ease. I just wanted to, I know we talked about the boardroom, I'm in support of that, but just to recognize those who can't can still log in.
Thank you, Trustee Spears. I believe we do have Trustee Doyle. Did you have a question, sir?
I do. It's more of a comment, Greg. Thank you. I'm hoping we go with option 1. I feel that if we are having our students and staff go back into the classroom, there's no reason why we can't go back in our boardroom, which is bigger than any classroom that I've ever been in. We can wear the proper protective equipment and carry on and do our job.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Doyle. Trustee Worden, did you have a second question? No. Okay, all right. Thanks. Go ahead. No further question. I'm going to ask now Trustee Gibson and Trustee Culver.
So I just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to getting back in the boardroom, but I just had a quick question about what the sound equipment for the $45,000 would entail, just so that we have a better idea of how it will work for those of us in the room and those of us who are not.
Great, thank you very much. In terms of the details on our quote, I'm going to pass it over to Superintendent Wazinski so he can provide us with a bit of an update. But definitely the audio would be one component, as well as the opportunity to be able to stream this. But I will pass it over to him for additional information.
Thank you. Yes, the 45,000 is an estimate, and it's one of those things you do get what you pay for. But in the size of our room, we would require a significant investment in terms of speakers. Yes, you have speakers in front of you, but in order to get the audio picked up by computer, you probably need some investments into ceiling audio. Can't remember the right word, but essentially they pick up almost everything on sound. That would be the number one piece. The second piece is obviously the camera streaming, being able to pick up anyone in the room, but also be able to do it in sync with the sound. So there's lots of options out there, but in terms of getting something that's clear, something that's streamable, and something that will provide value to the listeners, you'd be looking at, a medium to high-end product valued anywhere between, our best estimate around $45,000. We would definitely have to get a more detailed quote because there's also electrical and a lot of other items that may have to be considered to kind of encompass the entire scope of such a project.
Okay, I think we have a question from Trustee Culver.
So I too am looking forward to going back into the boardroom. We all find this technology a little bit interesting to navigate. So I want to make sure everyone understands that this is how we would still continue in the boardroom. We'd all be connected to Microsoft Teams. We'd all have our computer in front of us, and we'd all have headphones on. So I want to make that perfectly clear that that's what it would look like going back into the boardroom without the investment of audio. I want, for one, am willing to invest that to ensure that our public continues to have access to our board meetings and that all trustees are able to attend if they want the opportunity. Microsoft Teams has been a challenge for some. We're missing someone tonight because of it. So I'm all in favor of exploring the cost of upgrading the boardroom so we can continue to give public access and all trustees have the opportunity to participate.
Thank you, Trustee Culver. Trustee Sloat.
Thank you. Just wondering, Superintendent Wazinski, the money, where will it be coming from? That's, we don't spend that in a couple of years for the board. We're pretty frugal with public's money. And then I have a couple other points, please.
That's something definitely the senior team would have to take away and look at available budget dollars, A, and actually get a real quote, and then B, try to provide a funding strategy. Okay,
so going forward, we would go the way we are, but together, which I think adds to our, connectivity with each other. And I know that there have been challenges using the teleconference, especially for in-camera items and things like that. So I am looking forward to getting in the boardroom, and if we can do it in a reasonable amount of money and time, we could do it going forward, that the meetings are always available. We are, not compared to the North, a large board, but we are fairly, it takes over an hour for some of our constituents to come in if they want to join the meeting. So I think it's a good idea moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sloat. Further comments or questions from trustees? Not seeing any. I'll throw my 2 cents worth in. I would agree. We need to be back in the boardroom. I think it's important. We are asking students and staff and teachers to be back in schools. We should be back in the boardroom. I also recognize, though, the sound system is not great in the boardroom. And so I certainly concur that we should perhaps look at fixing it so it's better, because if we're going to be using Teams, even if we're sitting around the table, we still need to be able to be heard properly. So I would support this. That I think it's the third option, I believe. Is it last one? Further comments or questions?
So Greg?
Yes, go ahead. Yep.
So I'd like to put a motion on the floor, if I may.
Thank you.
So that the Grand Erie District Board explore technology for the boardroom to enhance access for public to our board meetings and ensure all trustees have the opportunity for full participation.
Could I get a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Trustee Richardson. Are there any questions on that? I'll call the question. Or is there anybody opposed? That carries. Thank you. And I think that's a good statement to make. I think it's important that we're all back in the room as much as possible. I think that would be very beneficial for the governance of this board. Okay, if we could move on, as I did mention at the onset, I've asked that we move up the JK to grade 3 maths. Now, I'm not sure if everybody's getting feedback, but I'm getting a substantial amount here. Anyway, I wanted to put this out there, and I believe in a minute, Trustee Culver may be putting forth a motion, but I wanted to put forth where I see the situation. I have
Point of
been,
order, Mr. Chair.
certainly by all means.
The
Yes.
director's report. I realize you're trying
I
to. I just didn't know what,
apologize.
but maybe it makes sense. I don't know. Maybe it's up to the director. I don't think she, but I'm sure she's going to have a great update for lots of people on what, the few things that are happening.
It's up to you. Go ahead.
You're correct, Trustee Sloat. I must admit, trying to juggle all this, I did not look at the agenda to see that was next. So I'll throw it to the director if you'd like to go ahead with your report. I think it would be appropriate. You are next and to be scheduled next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. It is with great pride that I present my very first director's report for the Grand Erie District School Board. It has been 20 days, and there have been so many things to celebrate and so many things to be thankful for in Grand Erie. And this evening, I will share some of these incredible summer happenings with all of you. If there are any questions at the end, we can pose them to our respective superintendents. So I'd like to begin with our summer school update. We had approximately 2,054 secondary students or credits completed this summer, and that is in comparison to last year's, which was 1,637 credits completed. We had 78 students participate in our summer literacy and numeracy program, which is in comparison to last year, we had 34 students participate. And I'd also like to, at this time for summer school, recognize the dedication of our summer school team, who was able to successfully plan and deliver our courses in an online format that was very engaging for our students. So thank you to Superintendent Martins for this update. I would also like to bring everyone up to date with respect to our survey for return to school. As of August the 27th, we have received 20,000 student responses for our September reopening. 16,041 students will be participating in a conventional model this September. And we have 3,962 students who will be participating in a remote model. In terms of a breakdown, again, we have a variety of students in both elementary and secondary in conventional and remote learning settings. Our staff is currently going to be following up this week with families who have not completed the survey and are available to support and answer any of our families' questions as we move forward. Also, a very exciting piece of information for all of us is that later this week, we will be launching Grand Erie's K-12 Virtual Academy. This is the first time that we've been able to do this. This is a classroom without any walls, and information regarding the academy for our families will be brought forward in the coming weeks. Our goal is that we will be having the virtual academy up and running the week of September the 14th. There'll be some orientation first, and then some the classrooms will be set up probably midweek for a startup, and additional information will be coming. I'd like to recognize Superintendent Monroe, as she will be leading the K-12 Virtual Academy for Grand Erie. And I also would like to thank Kim Newhouse for her exceptional work in bringing the virtual school to life, along with John Eklund, who is going to be supporting that through our website and additional information. So stay tuned. Also, I would like to recognize our parent reopening guide that was launched last week. As new information comes, we will make sure that we communicate this information with our families. This is evolving, as I stated in our last board meeting, and I would like to recognize the team effort. However, under the leadership of Superintendent Baker, who was able to collaborate with the team and several departments to collate this information. It was exceptional. And again, I would also like to thank Val Slawich, Lisa Howes, for collating the work and Kim Newhouse for making this document, again, come alive for all of our families. We hope that it is user-friendly, easy to navigate with the tabs and the clickable index. So thank you once again for all of your work. In terms of childcare, we have 8 centers, and 6 of them opened up in July and August, and 2 are going to be opening up in the fall. So in July, we had McKinnon Park, Mapleview, and Bellevue, and today's family at Lakewood. In August, we had Ryerson Heights, and we also had the EduKids Daycare for Norfolk, Waterford open. This fall, we're still working on 2 additional sites, and that information will be forthcoming. We also have before and after programs. So again, these child care providers are going to be working with all of our school administrators in the coming weeks to open up, and they will be using the revised after-school guidelines with respect to outdoor play and using large spaces in school. So again, there may be some delays, but again, we'll be working towards opening those sites and working closely with our partners, as well as our early on sites. Again, they will be slightly delayed in opening, but we will have those open shortly after our child care centers are. The other component that I would like to highlight this evening is Camp SAIL, which is the Code Summer Learning Program. And I would like to say that this is our very first virtual camp. We had 10 schools participate, 15 teachers, 2 administrators, and 116 students between grades 3 to 7. This is a very exciting experience for all of our students who received a really interesting learning package to work at home that included a variety of supports for mathematics, and also some mentor texts for teachers that focused on Indigenous ways of knowing, growth mindset, and perseverance. This camp ran for 3 weeks, and it was 2 hours a day. I think the most important piece of this is gathering teacher feedback. One teacher said it was an amazing learning experience for me and the students. It was awesome that we all received math manipulatives and resources, and we were able to work together in a remote setting. And some parent feedback that we received. This camp really did help my child to see the practicality of math in the everyday world, and the activities were very engaging. Teachers were very supportive, and we appreciated this experience. So again, some additional information will be forthcoming from Superintendent DeVos in her report later this fall. I'd also like to just bring you up to speed with our school outbreak management protocol. We have received some information as of August the 26th. We are reviewing that with our public health units, and additional information will be coming in the next couple of days. The other component that I would also like to take an opportunity to share with everyone is just some highlights for budget. We have received to date $5.7 million from provincial and federal government funding. We have received a memo that's entitled Additional Guidance and Funding for School Reopening that will support online learning as well as the air quality and ventilation. On August the 26th, we received additional funding, and this additional funding was federal government funding. It's called a Safe Return to Class Fund, and it focuses on health and safety, staffing, and technology. And again, we will be bringing additional information as we are working through that this week with our Superintendent of Business, and Superintendent Wazinski will provide some additional information as soon as I complete this report, just to share some of that funding and where the direction will be in terms of our reopening for our schools. Personal protective equipment is another piece that we thought we would like to share, that it is arriving for our staff, and our staff is working long hours to unpack that and deliver it to our schools. And the other 2 pieces that I would like to share this evening is some information from Superintendent Baker around safe and inclusive schools. They are adding another video for our equity series of 4. This one addresses anti-Black racism and will be part of a broader plan for our staff training. And again, we would like to inform you that professional development from our Safe Schools team will be part of that process. And finally, if we can, I would like to share the Cayuga logo. So I'm going to ask Superintendent Martins if she can share her screen. This is a logo for a secondary school. Students and staff have been part of this process. It has been, in my understanding, about a year and a half of working towards producing this logo. IAC, NAC, and School Council were all part of that process, and I'm going to make sure that you all have an opportunity to see the new logo that the school will be using for this coming school year.
Not quite.
I'm
No?
really trying to do
Okay,
my best.
no worries.
Here. Sorry. I have it on my desktop.
Don't worry.
Let me try one more time. Oh, my friend Lisa, I can hear her running to help me. It's in your desktop. I did. Right here. There. Oh, here. Oh, okay. There we go.
Live action.
Okay.
Technology. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, there it is. There is our new Cayuga Warrior logo that Director Roberto just referenced. Really proud of the work collectively that was done with the community and with the students and with the staff, and to honor the history and culture that is so prevalent at Cayuga. Thanks, Director Roberto.
Thank you. That's great. So, Director Roberto, do you have anything further to add before I open up for questions?
Actually, I do not believe we're going to be able to get this video up, but I do want to also recognize Superintendent Thompson and the work that she did this summer for our K-3 transitions program. It was an exceptional summer program, and I will take about 30 seconds to see if it's possible to put that up. Otherwise, we will share that at a later date and we'll take some questions.
All right.
Roberto, I will try to play that right now. Oh. Sorry, just give me one moment.
Everybody ready to sing? Yeah. Okay, here we go. I am green today. I drip with joy like a cricket song. I am great today. Windy and damp like a morning fog. I am orange today. Loud and messy like finger paint on the wall. I am red today. Up and mad like a playground ball. I am black today. Strong and tall, a great big bear. I am purple today. Bright and happy like a butterfly. I'm a rainbow today. All the colors of the world. I'm a rainbow today. All the colors of the world. I'm a rainbow today. All the colors of the world. I am yellow today. I shine my light out like the sun. I am white today. Soft and quiet like new snow. I am blue today. Calm as glass and cool like the sea. I'm a rainbow today. All the colors of the
And that is what makes us a very proud family at Grand Erie. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, my screen is doing all kinds of very strange things now, so I cannot see if there are any hands up, but I hope finally. Director Roberto, can I take some questions now? Did you have anything further you wanted to add? No? Okay, Trustee Sloat, please, go ahead.
Thanks. I was just, I thought Director Roberto said that Superintendent Wazinski was going to give us a update on HVAC and that sort of thing as part of, is this part of your report, or is this, you'll do it after some questions on this? Just thank you. I can't believe that all the work that's been done all summer. There's wow, lots of scribbling on my paper. That's great. Thank you for sharing the wonderful things that always happen at Grand Erie and the successes we've got now and we're going to take into September. Thank you.
Director Roberto, I didn't know if you want to respond to that.
Yes, I believe Superintendent Wazinski is available to provide you with some additional information. And then we will be bringing a report back in September.
Yes, thank you. So we've received many announcements ever since the GSN wasn't released, and further return to school, return to the class funds. The other item that trustees may be wondering about is the reserve announcement that was part of one of those pieces, was that schools can spend up to 2% of their accumulated surplus on reducing class sizes, technology or health and safety. At this time, since our reserves weren't at 2%, Grand Erie has received an additional allocation that it will be allowed to spend on those three investments. So again, that will be part of our September 14th report on COVID budget and COVID related spending. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a further follow-up question there, Trustee Sloat?
So I thought we were getting a little more specific on, I realize HVAC is, not, schools aren't where homes are. So I realize a lot of schools have radiators and stuff like that where, it doesn't make sense. I just didn't know if Superintendent Wazinski had any sort of update on. I realize it's a lot of money in a very short time and 70 some odd buildings. So I realize there's many moving pieces and everybody's working very hard on it. So thank you. If something.
Were you looking for a response there, Trustee Sloat?
If there is something available, I thought we had suggested that would be something if we could understand. But if it's not available, I understand that also. Thank you.
Superintendent Wazinski.
I can tell you initially that we're looking at air purification systems and also advanced HEPA filters. But again, we will provide more detailed information at the September 14th meeting. But we will be utilizing all the HVAC funding in order to target those classrooms and those areas of our board that need it the most.
Okay, I think there's a couple of further questions. I see Trustee Spears and Trustee Culver. Go ahead, Trustee Spears.
Okay, so I just had a first feedback on those videos. They always make me feel really good about how hard people are working and how cute kids are and how resilient and strong they are. So I really always, every time, super appreciate those videos. And then the second thing is, again, speaking to Carol Ann's comment about air quality in the buildings. I think that is something I'm looking for as well.
Thank you, Trustee Spears. Okay, I think, do we have a response?
No response necessary.
Okay, Trustee Culver, then Trustee Van Every Albert.
So I just want to add a comment. It takes exceptional leaders to lead this system in a normal time. It takes extraordinary leaders to lead now. So I want to thank all the extraordinary leaders that are in the meeting with us and all across Grand Erie. I thank you all for doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Trustee Culver. Very kind and very accurate. Go ahead, Trustee Van Every Albert.
Well, I was going to say something of the same thing, except I really feel that our new director hit the ground running because she doesn't feel like she's new. And the things that have happened over the summer between all or among all of the people is amazing. There's no path to follow. it's just go with what you know. And I think our staff has a wealth of information, and they have and are going to make it happen for our kids. So, I'll go with thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vandery. Albert, other speakers, please. Okay, Trustee Gibson.
I think the thing that I want viewers and particularly parents who are really struggling through all of this to know is that everyone that's invested in this really cares about the kids and the safety. And the team, the administrative team in particular, have worked all summer very diligently, and it is taking some time to work through some of these issues, but everyone's working their best to make sure that we do have a safe, healthy environment for our students. So I just hope that everybody knows that if it is frustrating a little bit and things are taking a little bit of time, that we are working really hard collectively, and the superintendents and our new director have been working all summer diligently. So thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Gibson. Further speakers? Not seeing any. I think Director Roberto, did you have anything further to add, or you're finished with your report?
Finished. Just a thank you to all of you for your ongoing support. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like a mover to receive the director's report. Thank you, Trustee Dixon and Trustee Sloat. Anybody opposed to approving the fact that we've received her report tonight? Okay, seeing none, that carries. Thank you. Okay, now, as I so rudely interrupted our director before, I'll try it again. I just wanted to bring forth something, and I'm certainly not about to put any type of motion forth. I just want to give you some background information. As you're well aware, several school boards near us have had done motions from trustees about the whole idea whether or not to use masks. And I wanted to say, first of all, that I've heard and I've been inundated as chair of the board by parents on both sides, both yes, we should have them, and no, we should not have them, for all the very good reasons that are there. However, I believe right now, although the medical officer of health has not dictated that we have to have them in JK to 3, there seems to be a very strong overriding sentiment from both parents and from many of our staff that we should consider this. So I'd like to turn it to Trustee Culver, who I believe you have a motion you'd like to read.
Do we want to put the motion on the floor before we have a discussion?
Oh, we can have a discussion, but I thought it'd be important if you sort of read.
Okay. That the Grand Erie District School Board strongly recommends masks be worn in all buildings and in all student transportation for all K to 3 students where 2 meters, 6 feet of physical distancing is not possible, until such time as masks are no longer required or recommended in the general population to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Thanks, Trustee Culver. I thought if I could just elaborate. Oh, thank you, Trustee Worden. I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit further. I know there are a number of people watching us right now and are saying, well, why in heaven's name would we not go right to mandatory? I think you have to recognize that there's virtually no way of enforcing this with our youngest children. In fact, the government has withdrawn the ability for principals to even suspend JK to 3 students. So realistically, I think it's important that we say it's very strongly encouraged that we get that message out there, and hopefully peer pressure would be sufficient enough that most, if not all, the children will be wearing them. But I didn't want to put us in a situation where we've got exemptions being fired to the board, and more importantly, to all of our individual principals who would have to deal with all of those. So that's the understanding, and I really want to thank Trustee Culver, who was also very helpful in putting this together. But I hear we have it on the floor. We have had it moved by Trustee Culver and Trustee Worden is seconded. I'd like now to take any questions or comments on that. First of all, Trustee Gibson.
Thanks, Chair Anderson. I just wanted to say that the school boards have been in a really difficult position with the lack of direction sometimes from public health. It seems that masking should be a public health decision, yet it's been up to each municipality and now to each board. So it's really been a no-win situation. And I too have had a lot of feedback, and I appreciate the feedback from people. As far back as July 9th, we'd asked about the universal masking, and at that time we were looking for public health to inform our decisions. We continue to be concerned about masking for K to 3 and the safety of our students teachers and the fact that students might be bringing home contagions to their families. So just as a plug for those parents that are listening, in my day-to-day work, I've had staff working in long-term care homes and retirement homes with COVID-19 who've been safe because of masks. They've been able to be home with their families, and no matter what the decision is tonight, no matter what the decision is, I will continue to encourage students of all ages to wear masks, not only to keep their students safe and the staff safe, but to keep their families and elders safe. I appreciate that we are strongly recommending masks, and I know that some students will struggle. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to make everyone happy, but regardless, I think we all need to advocate for that universal masking and make the masks normal for our young students, make them fun. There's a lot of great patterns out there. We can wear our pictures as name badges, showing our smiles and helping students protect themselves and others. We have an opportunity as parents and as leaders to stop spread through these masks and through hand washing and distancing. As a community, we really need to help our youngest students to learn these skills. It's scary for all of us as adults, but we need to help our youngest students to understand the skills and stop the spread. So I really do hope that families will choose to send their children of all ages on the bus into classrooms wearing masks, because I think that is our best way right now to stop the spread. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gibson. Very, very well said. Can I get other comments from trustees? Trustee Dean, please unmute, please, Trustee Dean.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I too shared Trustee Gibson's thoughts with regard to the amount of pressure that we've been getting from various sources. I wonder, do we know at this point what our coterminous board has decided?
My understanding is they have not taken a stance in either direction as of today. I don't know if that may change in the next week. You're muted again, Trustee Dean. Trustee Dean, you need to unmute.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Trustee Sloat, did you have a question or comment?
The Teams is not being entirely helpful to us tonight. No, just Trustee Gibson said it very well, and I'm sure a lot of students are wearing masks, and there are breaks in the day, and I know our very creative teachers will figure out ways of the masks and taking them off and going outside and getting fresh air. So we're all learning how to do things differently, and we're all getting better at it every day. I do appreciate all the work that's gone into it, and I strongly encourage, and a lot of us were wearing masks before we were mandated by our local municipalities. So it's the right thing to do, and let's hope that people follow along. But I understand the reasoning behind the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Sloat. Further speakers?
May I speak to the motion, Greg?
Certainly. Go ahead, Trustee.
Yes, I want to thank Trustee Gibson. She certainly articulated all our feelings, how this is a collective responsibility of all of us to ensure safety return to our students to school. And I can see with encouragement and education and teaching children why we wear masks and the importance of masks will go a long ways. And I am fully confident that, as Trustee Sloat says, parents and people will do the right thing. And if a child can wear a mask, I'm sure they'll have one on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Culver. Further speakers? Okay, if we do not have further speakers, yes, go ahead.
There's two more in the comments.
Yes, I see that. Thank you very much. We have Trustee Spears, followed by Student Trustee Garbatti. Go ahead, Trustee Spears.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the strongly recommended line that we're using. I think that I'm in complete support of that. We've been using masks here at home based on that guideline as well, in line with municipality. I also appreciate that this gives us the opportunity to circle back when masks are no longer required, as opposed to them being mandatory and then taking longer to be able to respond quickly to the removal of the masks if and when COVID is managed. So I appreciate the wording.
Thank you, Trustee Spears. Trustee Garbatti, please.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to say that Trustee Gibson did a phenomenal job by what she said, and I fully support what she did say. I think it's incredibly important that parents do spend a lot of time thinking about this, and hopefully they do opt to send their children in with masks, because at the end of the day, it's what's going to keep us all safe. And with that being said, I fully support the motion, and I'm glad that it was brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Garbatti. Further comments from any other trustees that haven't spoken yet? Not seeing any. Again, just a review, we're putting forth the motion that we strongly recommend that JK to 3 students wear protective masks. I'll call the question now. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
Can we get it reread again, just in case, because it was rather rapidly, just to make sure everybody knows exactly what we're voting on?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Trustee Culver.
That the Grand Erie District School Board strongly recommends masks be worn in all buildings and on student transportation for all K to 3 students where 2 meters of physical distance is not possible until such time as masks are no longer required or recommended in the general population to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Okay, I think we've now heard it. Is there anybody opposed to approving that motion? Not seeing any. That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. We do now have E1A, approval of 2020 Committee of the Whole on regular board meetings. Director Roberto. And you're muted, Director Roberto.
Sorry there, my apologies. Yes, this is the background in terms of the Committee of the Whole and the meetings that have been initiated for the multi-year plan over the last number of years. As you know, this has been part of the work that we have been doing that aligns with our bylaws and a number of policies. So the review of both the policies and procedures, again, requires a 30-day period of community consultation and administration. And again, at the end of the 30-day period, administration will provide and receive some input for our policies and or procedures and bring them back to the Committee of the Whole. So the attached that you will see in this package that follows E-1A are all the scheduled reports and overviews for the trustees so that you can expect and see a long-term plan for what will be coming forward to all of us.
Thank you, Director. Questions for the Director on this? I'd just like to offer my thanks to Lisa for putting this together so thoroughly and so well. And I think obviously we're very fortunate to put together this accurately. Could I get please somebody to put forth a motion that we approve this schedule? Trustee Dixon, followed by Trustee Doyle. Are there any questions or comments further? Okay, I'll call the question. Is there anybody opposed to approving this? Seeing none, that is definitely approved. Okay, I believe next we have Superintendent Wazinski with the OPSPA membership fees.
Yes, thank you. So every year, this report comes up for trustees for consideration for the OPSPA membership. In the report, you'll see that the total requested fee for 2020-21 is $64,246, which is actually a decrease from what was paid in 2019-2020. That being said, the rest of the report is as printed, and we are seeking the trustee approval to pay the 2020-21 OPSA membership fee.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. A reminder to trustees, this is an annual report that comes to keep our membership alive with OPSPA. Are there any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I will call the question. Is there anybody opposed to approving this?
We don't have a mover or a seconder.
We do not, do we?
I'll
Thank you,
move it.
Lisa. Thank you. Trustee Worden and Trustee Richardson seconds it. Thank you. Okay. Anybody opposed to the now well put forth motion? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. Okay, Director Roberto, Strategic Communications Plan.
Making sure I'm on.
Yep, you
You
are.
can hear me? Great, thank you. And with me, Kimberly Newhouse is here, our Manager of Communications. This is a report that has come forward that is called Strategic Communications Plan. It was created as an ad hoc committee, and basically what it does is it plans to align with the board's multi-year plan that would occur typically in this year. And again, the alignment in terms of the timing in both of those launches may look different, but this ad hoc committee has trustees and staff. We have the Grand Erie Parent Involvement Committee, the Native Advisory Committee, Special Education Advisory Committee that are part of this process. And again, it would look at some priorities and determine some next steps in terms of communication. I would like to turn it over to Kimberly Newhouse to see if she'd like to add anything to this report.
I think you summarized it very well. I'll happy to answer any questions if we have any.
I think we do. I think Trustee Culver has one. Please go ahead.
So as I look at this, it's going to be a challenge trying to run an ad hoc committee at this time. I'm wondering if the director and Kimberly would say if there's any disadvantage to saying let's defer this till January of 2021 and look at it again to see if we can move forward with this ad hoc committee.
I don't see any disadvantages of delaying it till 2021 and revisiting then. I think the strategic communications plan, if it can follow and align with the multi-year plan, that's a really good way to tie the two pieces together. And as you'll remember, we do have a strategic communications plan that's done annually, and that report will be coming to the board on September 28th, and we can continue to update it as we move forward.
Thanks. Go ahead, Trustee Culver. Yep.
Did the director have something to add? No? No. So I'd like to make, unless someone else has comments, I'd like to make a motion then to defer this to.
Okay, before you do that, Trustee Culver, okay. I believe Trustee Sloat has a question.
Thank you. It's just, me and the minutia. 4.2 has the board receiving this report. The report from 3 years ago, the board approved the strategic communications plan. So I'm just wondering about we did actually make a motion to approve. So I'm just wondering if that's possible.
So you'd like the terminology change from receive to approve?
Yes, on 4.2.
Okay.
And I agree with Rita's motion to refer.
Okay, so we're looking to refer this until
January 2021.
Thank you, Trustee Culver. Director Roberto, are you okay with having it referred? And then Trustee Sloat, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm confused. I mean, it still has the motion. You mean to bring this whole report back in January, then prove it then to complete by maybe a later date than June 2021? Because right now, I realize Kim's a little busy for some unknown reason, but I just, so you want to just refer this whole report to January to talk about it then to see what position we're in then, Trustee Culver?
That would be correct, Trustee Sloat. And
thank you.
Then.
Okay, so just for clarification, we're referring it to January, and at January, clearly, when it comes, we could decide, clearly, it probably wouldn't be ready for June 2021. We could have a new date put in at that time. We're good with that? So the motion is to refer this entire report for 4 months. Any further speakers? I'll call the question. Anybody opposed?
You need a seconder, Greg.
Oh, I thought we had one. I had Trustee Sloat. Sorry. Thanks, Trustee Worden. We do have a mover and a seconder now, I believe. I hope. Lisa, let me know if I'm wrong. Okay, anybody opposed?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you. Anybody opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, next, Superintendent Thompson, please. Special Ed Advisory Membership.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trustees have before you a report outlining interest in our SEAC committee for a new member. We are ready to take her on. We have space. So at this time, I'm asking that the board approve the addition of Tara Buchanan, a representative from Community Living Brant, as an agency representative to our Special Education Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Superintendent Thompson. A question, or are you moving, Trustee Dixon? Moving? You're muted. Okay, are you moving, Trustee Dixon? Okay, we're gonna take that as moving. A seconder, please. Trustee Gibson, you're looking at me, that counts. Okay, Trustee Gibson has seconded it. Do we have questions for Superintendent Thompson? Okay, I'm gonna call the question. Is there anybody opposed to approving this? Seeing none, that carries. The next one we have is from Superintendent Martins, the Educational Services Agreement. Please go ahead, Superintendent.
Good evening, trustees. Before you is a report with respect to the Education Service Agreement that Grand Erie has with Indigenous Services Canada for services provided to our Six Nations students in our secondary schools. The report before you asks you to approve this 5-year Education Service Agreement with Indigenous Services Canada through way of a signature. I'm going to walk through the background and then give you some additional information. So our current agreement expires today with Indigenous Services Canada, but there's always a clause for rollover. And we commenced a review of the current Education Services Agreement that expires today and had 5 meetings since the beginning of January to the middle of June of this year to revise, edit, and present before you, but also before Indigenous Services Canada, the 5-year agreement. On this committee were representatives, Brenda Blanchard, Director, Ralph Wazinski, myself, Denise Martins, Claudine Van Every Albert as our Native Trustee, Julia Candlish, who was the Six Nations Education Manager, Audrey Powis-Blomberry, who's the Six Nations elected counselor, and most uniquely, that for Grand Erie, we have a board team that's made up of Six Nations counselors, in our schools, a community liaison, but most importantly, a Native trustee rep who sits at the table and represents the needs of our Six Nations and Grand Erie students. The agreement, which is before you, is in draft form. We did complete our discussions, as I indicated, in mid-June. This agreement has been sent to Indigenous Services Canada for their signatures. As of today, we have not received that back, so I'm going to say it's in draft form. And should anything change for this, that Director Roberta and I would bring back those changes to you. The wording and references and enhancements will continue to further support our student achievement and engagement. So the document that you have before you is quite similar to the existing document with a few highlights that I've included there. The funding is for the base amount of the provincial grants for student needs funding and is acknowledged in there. A few staffing highlights is that we would continue to offer a 0.5 FTE and match that through the Education Service Agreements for Native language teachers in both Mohawk and Cayuga. We have enhancements and an increase. This is one area we've had an increase to our special education funding in the high cost special education area, which is Appendix 7. And there's continued funding for Appendix 9, which is the learning opportunities enhancement. We are strong partners with Six Nations with this, and one of the outcomes once the document is signed and received will be for me to bring this to secondary principals and share the new Education Service Agreement and also enhance and reinforce the unique aspects of delivery of education to our Six Nations partners and those students in Grand Erie. I'm happy to take any questions that the trustees may have, Chair Anderson.
Thank you. Questions for the superintendent? Trustee Van Avery Albert, please. You're muted, Claudine.
Okay, it takes a
good.
while to unmute. It's a little slow. It's more a comment than a question. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff at Grand Erie who worked these several meetings and in between to get this document completed. And it's a good document. We're quite satisfied. We still have some way to go, but we're quite satisfied. And as Brenda is not here, but Brenda did a lot of work. Brenda Blanchard, our former director. And so somehow I would like to give thanks to her. And 20 years ago, when I was on the board, I was not allowed to come near the table when this was being discussed, nor was anybody else from Six Nations when this was being discussed. So I was very happy that we were involved this time, and I'm sure there will be involvement going forward. So with that in mind, I would like to move this.
Thank you, Trustee Vandenberg. Albert, before I take a question from any trustee, can I get a seconder, please? Seconder. Thank you, Trustee Dixon. Go ahead, Trustee Sloat, for the question.
Ooh, that's ugly. Yeah, thank you very much. Just real quick, and congratulations for all the hard work on this. 3.4 speaks to the cost of a full-time equivalent teacher certified by the Ontario College of Teachers. And just one, does that preclude us? Because sometimes we've had to hire people that are not certified teachers, but are on letter of permission or whatever the proper term is, because we can't find a person who is qualified to be as a teacher and as a native language teacher in Cayuga or Mohawk. So this doesn't preclude us from working through HR and being able to hire someone on letter of permission, if that's the correct word.
That is correct, Trustee Sloat. Always in front of education in the provincial jurisdiction, we want to have Ontario certified teachers teaching Ontario certified courses. And we raise the bar high and have high expectations in our partnerships with Six Nations and our other partners with respect to that. And of course, if you know, parameters presented themselves that could not be the expectation, then we would do everything possible to provide the cultural learning and experience necessary. But there would be huge HR issues that would have to be followed, and I'm not sure if Superintendent Sitzerbox wanted to add anything in that area.
Superintendent Sitzerbox, do you have anything further?
Nope, that was well covered.
Okay, thank you very much. Further questions from trustees? Not seeing any. We do have a mover and a seconder. I would like now to ask if anybody is opposed to approving this. And seeing none, that carries. Okay, we're moving on down now to Energy Conservation Consumption Report from Superintendent Wazinski.
Thank you and good evening again. So tonight I do have two people with us today from our facilities department. Our facilities services manager, Dominic Manicia, and our Energy Conservation Officer, Katie Hashimoto, are both here to be able to help present some of the materials of the report and answer any detailed questions you can have. So with respect to our Energy Conservation and Demand Report, every year school boards are required to report our energy performance metrics annually, no later than July 1st, to the Ministry of Education's Utility Consumptions Database. This aligns with the regulation that was introduced under the Electricity Act. So our energy and conservation demand management is composed of two parts: a summary of our annual energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions for our operations, and a description of our previous, current, and proposed measures for conserving and otherwise reducing the amount of energy consumed by our operations, and for managing our demand for energy, including a forecast of our expected results. So I'm going to pass it over to Dominic at this time. He's just going to highlight some of the great things that we've been able to do in the 2018-19 school year in order to reduce some of the consumption across our system. So Dominic, we have you up on the floor today.
Thank you. I'm happy to present some of the highlights of the energy consumption report. If we could start off on page 95. We can look at the report data and variables. So it's important to know the most important aspect of measurement for this report is the energy use intensity, which is the EUI measurement. What it does is it takes all of the hydro and gas and converts that into an energy intensity, which is then divided by the square footage of the facility. And you'll see later on why it's important for that. It's also interesting to note that the Natural Resource Canada has a benchmark for Ontario schools of that energy usage intensity of 23.69, and our average is 20.4, which is really good. We are speaking with 18-19 data since it's a full year, and if we move to Table 1, you will be able to see over the last 3 years our intensity usage. And yes, in 18-19, our intensity usage went up on average across the board. And basically that was due to the very cold winter we had, and we had an excessive use of natural gas for our board. Table 2 shows the intensity broken down between hydro and natural gas to give us our total of 20.12 for elementary and secondary. Table 3 shows our intensity usage at 20.69. Our administration buildings, however, are certainly a different type of building because of several reasons. You'll see Teacher Resource Center at 29.5, Joseph Brandt at 25, and the Education Center and Facility Services at 36. Why such a high energy usage? A couple things. Older buildings. We have a lot of data center information, which is just churning and using hydro a lot. Also, a lot of the usage, as you can see, the superintendents in their spaces in this late hour in the evening as well. So, and we have older equipment. Our rooftop equipment in these facilities are older and do need renovated over time. Again, that's a challenge with budgeting and using a different funding source, since we can't use our capital reserve money for that. So moving on to Table 5. Table 5 shows the energy usage by school years. So you could see schools that are 24 years and younger. Unfortunately, there's only about 4 of them. The energy usage is about 14.2%. 25 to 50 goes up to 18, and then it starts after 50 years, averaging around 18 for the intensity usage. Table 6 just shows a breakdown of what was consumed over the 3 years at our board. Then we get into the top 10 performing schools in Table 7. It's interesting to note that BCI, a lot of technology in there. We do have our ground source thermal technology in there as well as part of our building automation systems. And it's also a large school that we can divide that number into, followed by Bramlin, and all the way down to Major Balachi, which is a century-old school. And then our bottom performing schools would be, starting at the bottom of the list, moving up, would be the board office and up to Paris District High School. So certainly we take the bottom 10 schools and we say, what can we do moving forward as far as energy demand and conservation? And there are a lot of factors that play into what happens in a school and what uses energy. So the design, the construction, retrofits, we certainly take a look at that. Building automation, I mentioned before. LED lighting retrofits are almost entirely done, with a few cafeterias that need to still be done at some of our sites. And then taking a look at what we did in 18-19 for our capital projects. On page 102, we've done roofing projects at Briar Park, Hagersville Secondary, Jarvis, Onega, Brant, Paris, and Port Rowan. We did about $2 million. Boiler and rooftop replacements, we did about 1.2 million, and window replacements about 243,000. Finally, the efficiency of a building requires not only what we put into it as far as efficiencies with mechanical equipment, but also educating occupants. And occupant behavior is huge, turning off lights, water conservation, certainly a big component in our strategy on how we could achieve savings moving forward. Obviously, when we report on 1920, we would have a COVID experience with a good window of opportunity where we were able to turn back our thermostats since the middle of March till the better part of the summer as well. So in summary, basically what we're going to look at is better student information. Katie will certainly work on the equal teams. Unfortunately, it's been a challenge this year. We had to cancel some of our programs with that initiative, but we're certainly hopeful to look at some of our bottom performing schools and look at some energy improvements. What we've done for water conservation is we bought 40, these devices are called Flowies. We had a few put in schools. What they do is they detect leakage for water for a school. It may not seem a lot with a urinal running or a toilet or a tap, but over the course of 24 hours, it could be significant. And the interesting thing is that these devices will show us in the off-peak hours in the middle of the night if there's a leak. So then we can send our trades unit to repair that. So we bought additional units and we're going to implement them into the fall for water conservation. And as well as, let's not forget the good things that we did years ago with our solar schools. We've got about 20 schools in the system that produce about 2.5 thousand kilowatts of hours of energy. And it gives us an investment back because we do turn it back into the grid. And we receive somewhere in the neighborhood of about $95,000 of revenue a year for that. So that's basically the highlight of the report, and there's more detail appendices there for your review. And at this point, Katie and I are happy to take any questions.
And I think, and first of all, Dominic, thank you so much. And Katie, it's you didn't get to say much, but I know you guys were working together to put this together. I see questions from, first of all, Trustee Spears, then Trustee Sloat. Go ahead, Trustee Spears.
Thanks. I just wanted to say I love the comment about the water because I've found out recently how expensive a slow leak or a running tap costs, and it sounds nominal, but it's not, and cumulatively over schools. That would be a huge impact. So I appreciate that part of it. So the other part of my question is a question. It's big. So maybe you can help me as a novice trustee try to understand how so-called super schools or schools that are built that are larger save us money in the long term. Because when you talk about a building envelope and you talk about the life cycle of a building, the bigger it is, in my novice mind, the bigger it is, the more expensive it becomes to manage as it grows older. So very quickly, can someone please speak to that, how it actually saves us money to build bigger schools?
I don't know if you want to try that, Dominic, or Katie, or maybe the Superintendent Wozinski would like to give it a try.
I apologize, I just got booted, so I missed the question, but I'm back on.
Okay, I think the question was with regard to larger schools and wanting to know the cost efficiency of larger schools. Maybe Superintendent Wozinski, do you feel comfortable answering that?
No, that was a pretty technical question. I was just going to actually defer to Dominic.
Oh, good job. Go ahead, Dominic, back to you.
Send that to me later even. It doesn't have to be to take up people's time tonight, but it was an opportune time to ask the question that's been on my mind for years.
Well, let's let Dominic give it a try.
So very quickly, a larger school does consume more energy, and it is more expensive than the smaller schools when you look at it as far as the consumption rate. But that's why we don't use the consumption rate. We use the intensity rate. So we divide it by the square footage. So now we're comparing one facility to another facility with equal square footage, sorry, with equal energy usage. Isn't that right, Katie?
Absolutely. And then with larger schools, there's different fees that are also included. So smaller schools were being charged less, and with larger schools are being charged more, just in the different fees that are associated with our energy as well. One thing that does greatly help, at least with our natural gas, is we buy it as a bulk commodity, and we're not buying it straight from the provider, so the utility provider. But as far as the electricity side, we have schools that are being charged by our demand and our usage, whereas our smaller schools are being charged just by their usage.
Okay.
Okay.
We had a question for Trustee Sloat, a trustee from Trustee Van Everybody Albert. So Trustee Sloat, please.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for the update on the solar power panels, because a lot of people don't realize that we do have them, and they've been up there a long time on our roofs. So thank you for that update, Dominic, and for letting everybody know. Just the flowies in the report talks about 10, and so then you mentioned 40. So I assume one per school. So you're going to go and do more schools. Is that the idea? One per school? Is that?
You're muted, Dominic.
Well, we purchased 10 last year to start with, and I believe we purchased 30 more, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's one per school, because I realize like Norfolk changed their water rates substantially enough that Raf mentioned on our quarterly financials, because it is a huge commodity. So and I realize it doesn't quite fit in this, but it is a huge thing. And have you do work on the water consumption of schools? Because I realize some are on wells and other ways of getting water, along with the ones that are part of municipal services. So we do keep track of that. Is there, but we don't usually get reports on them. Is that? And
okay, Trustee Sloat.
We lost Kate. Yeah, and one more quick one. I noticed that the most cost-efficient school is BCI, which is sort of our, it's a 100-year-old building and a 10-year-old building all smushed together in one building. And the one thing that was put in there is ground source heat pump. And I haven't heard of us doing that since on our new builds at, Mapleview or anything like that. Have they gone out of favor? Is ground source? Because it just seems odd. I realize that some of the older buildings are very efficient because, they're just the way they were built 100 years ago, but it's also got a lot of new. So is it part in due to the ground source heat pump, and are they out of favor now? So that's not the way we do things.
The quick answer to that question is that it's an expensive alternative, so it needs to be into, so it makes sense for a high school because of the size of the school. For an elementary school, it may not make the sense because of the dollars, and also we're competing with ministry funding dollars for capital, and it's a challenge to try to make it LEED compliant or other devices that bring up the
If I could, on the water, as far as our water consumption, it is something that we are reporting to the Ministry of Education unofficially on. They ask for those numbers every year, only in the last few years, in anticipation that the Green Energy Act will expand to include water in future. So that is certainly something that we can talk about and can be added to the report for future years.
Thanks, Katie. I think we have Trustee Van Every Albert has a question. Go ahead. Take yourself off mute.
I'm off.
Good.
Okay, I'm looking at Table 8 and Appendix A, and I know that the third line site is connected to Hagersville somehow, but was that added into this study, or is that not added in at all?
I think you're muted, Dominic. Ralph? Yeah, go ahead.
Katie, can you confirm that, or we can get back when we look into the details on that question? I'm not sure the answer.
Yeah, I know that it's leased, that site, but I don't know if being a leased property, if it would actually go into this study or I don't know. I just like to know.
Typically, they would not, as we wouldn't have access to the metrics that like the utility bills that are paid, but we can definitely confirm it that if that is not the case.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask Dominic and Katie. I think that if I'm not mistaken, that concludes your report. And I wanted to thank you for taking the time tonight to joining us virtually. And Superintendent Wazinski, I'm assuming that is your report completed now?
That is, yes. I'm always proud to be able to showcase some of our talented staff and the work that they do in our facilities department. So
thank you. And thanks both Dominic and Katie. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, that we receive this report? Trustee Gibson, Trustee Sloat. Anybody opposed to approving or receiving this report? Seeing none. Thanks and good night, Katie and Dominic. You guys are getting free to go home. We don't. Okay. Next, we have Superintendent Wazinski, major construction. Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually continues the awesome work that they do. We do have our major construction report. So we have 3 projects we'd like to provide an update on. Mapleview, I know this is just an ongoing or recurring piece of information for trustees, but we are still waiting for the final update from the ministry in terms of releasing the final funding for the plan that was proposed almost a year ago now for the poor soils on Mapleview. So this will continue to show up until that project is complete from a funding standpoint. Second to that, we do have an update on the childcare renovation at Hagersville Secondary. As you'll see by the pictures, we're starting to make some incredible progress with respect to the exterior and interior. And we are hoping that this will be ready at some time in November or December from a construction standpoint. Now, this has been a project that also has gone through its pauses and postponements, whether you consider the change in government and also COVID-19, but we're making good progress there. And finally, we have our childcare addition at Central. Things are also progressing quite handsomely there. You can tell by the pictures that quite a lot of work is being done. And for those that remember the progress of Mapleview, you can see now that the masonry and the open web steel joists are up. That should be concluded soon and hopefully in time before the cold weather appears. It's still anticipated that the childcare addition won't be open until early part of 2020-21. At this point, I do open the floor to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Sloat.
I was by Central School today, and they are working very hard on it. But I guess I was surprised. The parking lot. I realized that we had to, because we lost parking on the daycare side of the building. I just surprised how far it encroached on the playground area. It looked like it sort of. I guess we have municipal rules we have to follow, but it seemed it could have been like. There's a lot of extra space that is not for parking. I just was hoping, I realize it's hard to configure something to make it look good and work for people, but I was just shocked because it's a pretty landlocked site. They're not as bad as a couple other ones, but it's just, it looks great. It's well parked and lined and all that stuff, but I was just surprised just how far it's gone into the playground area. Thank you.
Superintendent Wazinski, did you want to respond?
I was going to say, no, thanks for your comment. We were very limited in terms of the design that we could do for the additional parking.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? Could I get a mover and a seconder? Trustee Richardson and Trustee Richardson, go right ahead.
Yep, just on Mapleview, I guess we've requested the use of Kinsman Park again this year from Haldeman County. Just wondering, is that because the playground isn't fit yet? We had grass issues there in the spring, or is it just to create some extra space for students to play?
It's actually to support both, Trustee Richardson. The sod isn't taking as well as we had hoped. Something about the sod or the clay in Dunnville that's given us a little bit of challenges, but we'll have a better result for the spring of 2021. And yes, if we had access to a bigger play yard, it will keep the students further apart as they're more dispersed throughout the geography of that site.
Thanks. Thanks, Trustee Richardson. Did you want to move it, Trustee Richardson? Good, thank you. A seconder. Trustee Dean, how would you like to second it? That's a yes? Yep, okay. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. Trustee Gibson, go ahead.
I just had a comment. I was just going to thank Superintendent Wazinski for adding the pictures, because I think sometimes it's hard for us to get out to all corners of the Grand Erie. So it's really nice to see the great progress that's happening.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Trustee Gibson. Okay, I think we have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to call the question. Anybody opposed? Okay, that carries. Now we have next Director Roberto, please.
Thank you. This is our school council report. And again, I'd like to preface this with, we recognize the importance of school councils and how they play a significant role in connecting with our schools and supporting our student achievement and well-being. This report actually highlights that as schools move through the year, school councils receive $500 to support student learning. And in particular, they have $300 to help encourage and increase parent involvement, and $200 that would benefit schools in improving some engagement within their community. This year, schools typically are asked at the end of the year to submit a report, and that report would be due to the district, basically outlining some of the things that they have done. And typically you would see some of those highlights that schools have had, whether they're speakers or whether they're typical events that they have brought forward into their schools. Because of the year and the nature of the year in 2019, 2020, with COVID and some of the job action, those pieces were not submitted and were not required. So I wanted to bring that forward because they were not required to submit those highlights.
Okay, questions? Do not see any questions. Any comments from trustees? Not seeing any. I'd ask if we could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Dixon and Trustee Sloat. Last call the question now. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Okay, Superintendent Wazinski, please. Special approvals.
Yes, thank you. So the report in front of trustees refers to purchasing policy F6, where the director and or the superintendent of business, in consultation with the chair or vice chair, may approve contracts for supplies and services in excess of $250,000 or in facility related contracts in excess of $500,000 during the months when there is no scheduled board meeting, i.e. July and August. Such a report of such approvals will be presented to trustees at the first scheduled board meeting. Follow the approval. This is that meeting, and this report summarizes 2 approvals that were made in July and August. One for a paving reconstruction project at Cayuga Secondary School, and the second, which you were all made aware of, was as though as part of our budget deliberation process, was the Compugen lease devices program, which we needed to really get on earlier, and we purchased to lease the 2,800 devices in mid-August from Compugen. So that's the report, and at this time I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Questions for the superintendent? Do not see. Yes, Trustee Sloat.
Thank you. I was remiss earlier not mentioning that some of the schools, the paving work has done great. The board office, North Park, Briar Park, they've worked very hard this summer. A lot of work going on. Just wondering about the computers. Even though my needs are spending next year's money because we're still in this year, have we been successful, or is Compugen, because a lot of places are looking for computers and iPads and everything else? Are they going to be here soon, or is it a long way off because of the demand for technology in various forms for school boards?
So that's a good question, Trustee Sloat. I don't have that information at my fingertips, but I bet you Superintendent Monroe does.
I do. So yeah, thank you very much. So there is a delay in the order of the chips. So we do have, the devices are available, but the little chip that goes in them is on back order. Unfortunately, it's a worldwide back order, so it's not exclusive to Grand Erie. We hope to have those pieces coming up in the coming weeks. In the interim, schools have been informed, and we've asked them to think creatively, because do recall 1/3 of our devices are on the refresh cycle for this year that have been taken out, but the other 2/3 are not, as well as the tech tubs or pieces that they have in their school. So we're hoping in the interim they will be able to use those pieces.
Thank you, Superintendent. Further questions from any of the trustees?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Just in regards to what Lisa just said. So as you're doing refresh of equipment, do the equipment pieces automatically come with that chip normally? Or do you always have to wait?
So that is a piece. I don't know all the technical pieces, but I do not know that that is about how they put them together. But that is an inherent piece of the device working in order for it to, to be easy.
So as you refresh it, sorry, Greg, if I could.
No, go ahead.
As you refresh the pieces, you might see continued delay worldwide cycling through that.
Well, do note that only 1/3 of our devices are on a refresh schedule this year. So like with everything, we don't have a crystal ball into the future. We are hopeful that this is hopefully this is a unique situation that we just have to deal with this fall.
It's interesting, yeah. Okay, so can
Thank
I ask
you.
one final question about that?
Certainly, go right ahead.
It's the final one, I promise, Lisa.
That's okay.
Do you foresee having to delay the refresh of those equipment pieces if necessary, and then possibly doing other kinds of upgrades to those pieces while you're waiting, as opposed to taking them out of cycle and being short equipment entirely?
Right, so that's a great question. If you may recall, with 1/3 of the devices that were up for the refresh schedule this fall, those were the devices that we removed from schools early in order to provide devices for students. So although it's the chip that's missing, I think the overarching piece is that we've taken out 1/3 of the devices from our grade 2 to 7 classes. And those are the devices we are looking to replace as soon as the orders come in complete with the chips.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have any further questions or comments for the superintendent? Okay, could I get a mover, please, and a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Dean and Trustee Sloat. Anybody have any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Anybody opposed to this report being received? Seeing none, that is received, and it's on to the next one. Okay, we do have Superintendent Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everyone. So trustees are aware that there may be students in our schools that present with issues that will make it impossible for them to wear a non-medical or cloth mask and or a face shield for parts of the school day or for the whole school day. This procedure outlines the process for school principals to follow to determine if a student requires an exemption from wearing a mask or a face shield. Now, due to the motion made earlier this evening during the board meeting, I have amended the procedure slightly. So in the background section, we begin with, as per the Ministry of Education guidance document, Guide to Reopening Ontario Schools, students in grades 4 to 12 will be required to wear non-medical or cloth mask indoors in school, including in hallways and during classes and transportation. Amended. The board also strongly recommends that students in JK 2-3 also wear masks in hallways, during classes, and while on transportation. Due to the requirement for this procedure to be enacted as closely as possible to school startup on September 8th, I'm also respectfully requesting that the Board of Trustees waive Board Bylaw 9 and the necessity to circulate this procedure out for comment. So at this time, I'm asking for the two motions mentioned in the board report, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Okay, open to questions from trustees. Do we have some? There's two separate motions here. Questions? Not seeing any, and I appreciate the quick amendment on the fly there, Superintendent Thompson. The first one is that we waive, for obvious reasons, this needs to get out there. So could I get a mover?
I'll move that, Greg.
Okay, I got all kinds of voices here. I think I heard trustee Culver. Who seconded it? Okay, so trustee Sloat, do you have a question? Do you want to second it? You'd second it. Perfect. Okay, do we have questions on waiving this? Okay, I'll call that question. Who is opposed to waiving the rules for this reason? Nobody. That carries. The second one, we need a motion to receive this. Could I get two trustees to do that, please?
Mr. Chair, to receive as amended, please.
Oh, thank you. Good clarification. Thanks, Superintendent. Trustee Dean and Trustee Van Avery Alberts. Do we have any questions? Again, it's as amended with that slight change put in there pending, obviously, what we did earlier. Okay, I'll call the question. Anybody opposed to approving this or receiving it? Seeing none, that also carries. Thank you, Superintendent Thompson.
Thank
Okay, I believe we're on to H1A, summary accounts. Superintendent Wazinski.
Yes, the summary accounts for June 2020 is as displayed.
Thank you, sir. Could we get a mover and a seconder for this, please? Thank you. I see a hand, but I don't know who's there. I think it might be Trustee Doyle. Thank you. Okay, and seconded by? Thank you, Trustee Richardson. Any questions? Do you have a question, Trustee Richardson, or are you just seconding it twice? Okay. All right. Anybody opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. The next one, Superintendent Wazinski.
Likewise, the summary of accounts for July 2020 is as displayed.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Doyle, do you want to do that again? Trustee Doyle? Okay. And I'm not sure. Is that Trustee Worden? I have no idea. I can barely discern. Well, we're going to go with Trustee Doyle moving and Trustee Worden seconding. I hope they're both happy with it. Can I have questions, please? Seeing none, anybody opposed to this? That carries. Next, Superintendent Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Special Education Advisory Committee minutes from May 14th, 2020 as displayed.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Could I get a mover? Trustee Sloat, and a seconder, please. Trustee, thank you, Gibson. Any questions? All right, I'll ask now, anybody opposed? Seeing none, go ahead, Superintendent Thompson, the second time, please.
Thank you. Special Education Advisory Committee meeting minutes to May 14th, 2020 as displayed.
Thank you very much. A mover, please. Okay, thanks, Trustee Dean, and Trustee Richardson seconds it. Are there questions? Seeing none, anybody opposed? All right, that carries as well. Superintendent Martins, please.
Good evening again. Before you are the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee minutes from June 18th as printed. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions from trustees? Seeing none, can I get a mover, please? Thank you, Trustee Van Avery Albert, and a seconder. Trustee Spears, you're wiping your face, but that counts as a seconder. Thank you very much. Any questions? Anybody opposed to approving this? That carries. Superintendent Wazinski, please. Joint Occupational Health.
Thank you. The Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee minutes from June 18th are as displayed.
Thank you very much. A mover, please. Thank you, Trustee Doyle, and Trustee Spears seconds. Questions? Seeing none, anybody opposed? That carries. Superintendent Wazinski again, please.
The Audit Committee report, I would like to gracefully pass over to Trustee Sloat.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Sloat.
I happily, as printed, there was an interesting, lots of good information at the meeting, and the IT department was working really hard on keeping us safe and secure, and I'll take any questions, but as displayed, as everybody's using the term.
Thanks. Did you wish to move it as well, Trustee Sloat?
Sure, I'll move the minutes, the first minutes.
Okay.
I'll second it, Greg.
Thank you very much, Trustee Culver. Questions? No questions? All right, I'd call the questions. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, that carries. So are we done with Superintendent Wazinski? I think we are.
No, you have to, there's a second motion, Greg,
Thank you.
Ratify the motion, approve the recommendations.
All right.
I'll make that if you'd like.
Thank you, Trustee Sloat, because my papers have just fallen on the floor and I'm not going to pick them up. So a seconder, please.
I'll
Trustee
second it.
Thank you very much, whoever that was. Thank you. And I'm losing some picture. I've lost my papers. I'm enjoying this enormously, though. Anybody opposed to approving this? I do not see any. Wonderful. Correspondence. Lisa, do we have any at this time?
We have the GEETF letter, the
Right.
trustees and the director.
Right, we do. And just to highlight that, the elementary teachers wanted a lot of things. They wanted smaller class sizes. They wanted safety protocols. There was a variety of things they wanted in there. I think we can see, we understand where they're coming from. Is there any questions, or can I just get a motion to receive this as information? Trustee Spears, are you putting your hand up to move it? Thank you. Seconder, please. Trustee, whoever.
I will, Greg, and I have a
Thank you.
comment.
Thank you, Trustee Culver. Please go ahead.
So we received this as information, but are you not responding to this letter?
Yes, I was planning to. I was going to simply suggest that I received it, and I appreciate the time and effort they've put into this, and that we're doing everything we can for the best, hopefully, start to the school year. That's where I was going to go, and I would take direction from trustees who'd like me to add anything further.
I've sent one addition I'd like in there, Greg, if you can do it.
Sure. What would that be?
I think I emailed it to you. I'll follow up tomorrow.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was looking at, I'd like to put the letter together ideally in the next day or so, because I think they deserve a response before school starts. Thanks so much, Trustee Worden. Okay, any other questions for the good of the group? Okay, I
So
believe
Greg,
that
if we
this,
have,
yep.
if we have anything to add to that letter, we
Uh-huh.
can email you. Is that
Yes,
right?
if you could please, yeah, email me the next, like, I'd like to send it off by Wednesday. So yes.
Okay.
So, okay, just fire me a short email or a text. That'll work either way. Okay, I think our next meeting, I believe, we would be back in the board office or the board ed center. So, but that will obviously with precautions, and that'll be very different, many of us to see each other. And I would like at this time to turn it to Trustee Sloat. Do you have a motion to make? Yes, I think you said adjourn. Is that what you said?
I did. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a seconder, please? Trustee Dixon. Okay, is there anybody opposed to adjourning this fine evening's event? Not seeing any, folks. We are now officially adjourned, and have a great night, folks. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Good meeting,
everyone.
guys. Thanks,
Keep
everyone.
safe.
Thanks,
Bye.
Joanne.